If you start your warm season crops too early, you're not getting a head start. You're just growing really difficult houseplants. Tomatoes, basil, and summer savory are the superstars of the summer garden, but they have completely different needs than the cool season crops we talked about in my last video. Today I'm going to show you how to get these plants started from seed. When you get them to the garden, instead of struggling, they can hit the ground running and you can get your best harvest. The big difference here is, of course, heat. While broccoli and spinach, of course, like cool, wet soil, tomatoes, summer savory, and basil, not so much. They want the soil to be consistently 70 degrees or above to germinate well. And if you stick them in cool, wet soil, they're going to rot. You don't want to start these seeds any sooner than 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date. If you start them at 10 to 12 weeks, like we did some of our peppers, you're going to end up with 2-foot tall plants and nowhere to go with them. You want to keep these trays in the warmest spot in your house. The top of the fridge will work. If you have heat mats, use those. We, of course, use the laundry room where it stays consistently between 70 and 80 degrees at all times. And once they pop, if you're using a heat mat, go ahead and pull them off of there and move them to direct light as soon as possible. Let's start with the big one, which is, of course, tomatoes. Since tomatoes grow fast and have aggressive root balls, we don't want to start these in little tiny plugs. We like to start them in, of course, the 6x6s. We are getting a tiny plug tray, but that's for different crops later on. Now, you can use a small pot for these. I've seen people use 4 inches. The problem with that is it's too much space with too much water, and you've got a pretty good chance that it's not going to go great. If you start with the 6 cells, you can up pot them to the 4 inches. And about 4 weeks after starting them from seed, you're going to want to plant these about 1/4 inch deep. Of course, I do 2 seeds per cell just in case, and then I'll snip the smaller one later on. What I've actually been doing is waiting until they get a little bit bigger where I can fit them in one of my pint mason jars. I go ahead and give them a clip, drop them right in that water. They'll root up, and now I have 2 tomato plants. I have tried teasing them apart. Seems to kill both of them, but maybe I just need a softer touch. I don't know. Tomatoes are hungry, so of course in my seed mix, I like to add just a little bit, 10 to 20% max, of worm castings or compost. When we up pot, we're going to add compost or extra worm castings to that mix to feed them all the way up to the point where we go out to the garden. This gives them a slow release nitrogen that won't burn the baby roots like the blue chemical fertilizers will. Here's the trick. When your tomato is about 6 inches tall, that's time to go ahead and give them the up pot because they're going to be getting a little bit crowded. And all up potting, taking them from the small 6 cells and up potting them into a 4 or 6 inch pot, whatever one you want to use. And when you do, go ahead and bury that stem deep because all those tiny hairs that are coming down that stem of that tomato are actually going to turn into roots, which is going to make a massive root ball for when you go to plant it out directly into the garden. And something just to keep in mind whenever it comes down to transplanting your tomatoes, bigger is not always better. We've taken smaller 4 to 6 week start versus 8 to 10 week starts, put them in the garden, and those bigger plants actually stunt because it shocks them more than it does the small plants. We want to get a jump start, but we don't want to jump the gun too much. Let's talk about variety real quick. So I did notice that we are limited on our variety this year, but it is what it is. One is, of course, the Cherokee Purple. A lot of people know about it. A lot of people pick it. I picked it up from watching YouTube videos, decided to try it last year, and this is now one of my favorite tomatoes. It's a slicer. It makes a medium to large fruit, and commonly they grow at about 10 to 13 ounce fruits on them, but it's not unheard of to get a 16 ounce fruit. We had some really big ones, but mostly they stayed in that 10 ounce range for us. They are really dense and meaty on the inside and perfect for cheeseburgers. Plus they have a smoky flavor to them. They are fantastic. This will be a consistent all the time growth for us. The large cherry red or the other large red cherry. So I'm actually pretty sure these are the exact same things, just rebranded through different companies. So you can get tomatoes that are the size of a pea from them, and you can get tomatoes that are the size of a golf ball from them. And when it comes to just snacking, they are fantastic. What we found out last year, though, is if we harvest these in large, crazy amounts, because they are just immaculate, prolific producers, you can actually make tomato juice out of these, and it's pretty freaking fantastic. We used them a lot in salads, but once you get so many just gallon freezer bags of them or Walmart bags or whatever you're doing and freezing them so they don't go bad, you save all those, you peel the skin off, throw them through the juicer, and it's crazy how much juice you'll actually get out of these. It does take a lot of them. There's a lot of processing involved, but it is a good one where if you want the cherry tomato while being able to do more with it than just the standard cherry tomato salad, they're perfect for it. These are my originals from 2020-2023 grow season. Liked them so much that we saved the seeds, turned around, and have been trying to acclimate them to our climate just to see if they will actually be more of a prolific producer or if it'll change the flavor profile. I actually just planted the Illinoisans 1 is what I've been calling them since I liked them so much. I seen these and I was like, well, we'll have to try these ones too. And these are the red cherry large fruited, and these are the large red cherry. So pretty sure they're about the same thing. Then we have the Roma VF from Burpee. This is one I wish I would have saved seeds from last year. It is by far one of my favorite producers for making our tomato sauce. It is relatively low liquid inside of it. As a paste tomato, that's fantastic, especially if you've tried making spaghetti sauce out of anything other than a paste tomato, because it's just such a terribly long process to boil that down to the consistency that you want. What I have been trying, and we're going to do a video on it later on in the season, is when we freeze them, you can actually pull the skins off of it and it actually leaves most of the water behind in the bag when they thaw out. We're going to compare that to the way we normally do our tomato sauce this year. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that video. Plants, because it is a determinant, but I will say with 10 plants last year, we ended up with over 60 to, well, I think it came out to 125 pounds of tomatoes. Sounds like that's an outrageous number, but when you need 60 pounds of tomato just to make spaghetti sauce, that's not really that bad. For the first year of us actually making our own homemade spaghetti sauce, I was glad to get 2 batches out of this. I saved the worst for second last because the Ace 55 is an heirloom all-purpose tomato. It's good for slicing, it's good for salads, it's good for juicing, it's good for whatever tomato thing you want to do. I can stand this tomato. It is one of my originals from 2022-2023. I have grown this tomato every year without fail. And every year, I end up super disappointed in this tomato. If there are any Ace 55 gurus in the comment section, let me know, because I get 5 tomatoes out of 10 plants. They whether split, pests get them, or the whole plant just will split in half. And I'm talking, I've trellised it, I've used tomato cages, I've used the weave, you name it. I know there's a lot of problems that come with growing heirloom tomatoes. They like to have a little bit of extra compared to a hybrid or something that was bred specifically for resistance to certain things or grown in areas to acclimate it to that type of area. But this one, I've tried it. And I'm going to try it again this year just to see if maybe this is the year that they will produce, because I want to see what everybody's talking about when they say the Ace 55. I want to see it. But if I run out of seeds, I ain't buying any more. And then the seeds that I don't have in front of me right now, but I think everyone should probably try at least once in their garden, is any sun gold. So yellow tomatoes. We made a salsa. Well, I can't say we. Miss Haley made salsa out of sun gold drops or something fancy like that. It is a plum tomato, essentially. And they're super tiny. Well, not super tiny. They're a little bit bigger than my thumb. And they are such a prolific producer that I'm definitely getting them this year and planting them. And I will be collecting seeds and regrowing them ourselves for the following season. But they are such a good tomato for everything. And so if you take them, you make your salsa. People who are like, I don't really care for salsa, they're going to love it. It's going to be amazing. You want it on a salad? Throw your red cherries on there. Then slice some of those yellow plums, or like yellow sundrop or something like that. Slice those in half, put those in there. You get the really citrusy acidity of a regular tomato with the more mellow undertones of just sunshine in your mouth when you eat them. It's just fantastic. Just gonna recommend it. Later on in the season when we go to transplant, I will definitely have these planned on hand to show exactly what I'm talking about. But we got ours from the nursery last year, and if those 4 plants produced so many tomatoes, like we legit had to start figuring out something to do with it. The only thing I didn't like about them is when we did try to juice them, the tomato juice was yellow. The flavor was good. Everything was great. I don't know why, but just yellow tomato juice, I was like, nah. Those are going to be the 7 varieties that we're trying and the reasons why we're trying them. Next is basil, and people are going to struggle with basil just because they want to treat it like a tomato. Does basil need light to germinate? Not necessarily. But they do hate being very deep, and what I like to do is essentially just surface sow them. Go ahead, get your soil situated, sow them on top, and then give them a light dusting of soil on top of that. Mist them in perfect depth every time. You could also, if you have vermiculite on hand, use that as well over the top. We just go ahead and use the standard potting mix we use for everything. Now, basil is a diva when it comes to getting cold. If your house drops below 60 degrees at night, it's going to turn yellow or black, and it's going to sit there and pout. Always keep basil above 65 degrees. And once your basil has sprouted and has its first set of 3 true leaves, you're going to want to pinch the top off of it, which is going to cause it to branch out and be more bushy. I have a bunch of shorts on how to do this. And if you do this early, you'll have a bush instead of a stick, and that's what we all want. If you grow beans or tomatoes, summer savory is a must. It's an incredible companion plant that repels pests while reportedly improving the flavor. The seeds are tiny, so we're going to go ahead and surface sow them, press them in gently with our thumb, mist them, and call it good. They absolutely must have light to trigger germination. Start these about 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost. They're a slower grower than basil is, so be patient. And they look like tiny threads or tiny little grass leaves when they germinate. So don't pull them. They're not weeds. They're actually the summer savory. Remember, cool season crops can handle a mistake, but warm season crops will punish you if you rush them into the cold. So just be patient. If you're growing a specific tomato variety, let me know in the comments below. I'm always looking for a new variety to add to the garden. Next up, we're going to be tackling the vining beasts, gourds, and passion fruit. Super stoked about passion fruit. You do not want to miss the loofah tips because they need a super long grow season, and we'll see you in the garden.